Hi, I'm Faye. Welcome to More Better with Tracy and Faye, the podcast where we help you become a better communicator at work, one episode at a time.
Hi, I'm Tracy. And in today's episode, we are talking about choices. We all make them all the time when we communicate, but do we realize it? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. So today in this episode, we're going to put the spotlight on choice when it comes to business communication, because guess what? Everything is choice. Everything is a choice. And that's a powerful statement to live by. And in fact, even outside of business communication, I've come to realize that our whole lives come down to choosing. We choose all the time, every day, in big ways and in small ways, we choose. And those choices come to define us. So today, Faye and I want to talk about choice as it applies to business communication, and in particular, where AI comes into play in terms of choice.
Ooh,
Faye, what are your
exciting.
thoughts?
Exciting. Okay, I'm going to say something that people may not agree with, and that's okay. Claim using AI won't make you a better writer, especially in business or workplace communication. There, I said it.
How dare you? AI is going to change everything and make
It
everybody an
will. It
excellent
does.
writer.
It does, and it will. Okay, I said what I said. Here's what I mean. You can use all the tools. There's so many great tools. We use them all, right? Grammarly, ChatGPT, the MS Word editor, even. They're all good. But
Yep.
to ensure that your context, information, and delivery is appropriate for your audience and your communications objective, you have to make choices. Your audience. So is it appropriate for your audience, that senior leader who wants all the details, or maybe that other senior leader that only wants to speak at, 50,000, feet? Does it have all the information they need to take that action or to make a decision? Does it even sound like me, or does it sound like the person I'm writing on behalf of? These are choices that only a human with a brain and critical thinking can make. Technology, for sure, can get you started and can help you along, but you have to finish the job. Tracy?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. I've been dabbling in AI. I'm not an expert user by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but I found it really helpful for initial drafting of things. I use it for initial drafts of our script for this website, for the website podcast. When we have scripted podcasts, I've used it just to get started when sometimes looking at a blank screen is really stressful.
Yeah.
Go into chat, go, hey, dude, or dudette, whoever you are out there, give me a first draft of this. And it's great. But to your point, the problem with ChatGPT or any of those chatbots, when they change things, it just becomes, it's generic. It's generically okay. And generically okay is not going to get you where you want to be. The thing I think about is if your news releases and a message from your CEO to everybody about the latest engagement scores and an article on your intranet celebrating International Women's Day, if all of those things sound the same, then that's a problem, because then it all just becomes wallpaper. Nobody's going to notice anything. And as you said, you need to choose, as the person who is actually doing the writing, you need to know enough about your audience and about what your audience needs so that you can add in those things. Use ChatGPT, whatever it spits out for you, whatever chatbot, as a framework, but it's not the end result.
Yes.
Yes.
I have an example. Maybe I'll just jump in with a quick example about like that vanilla kind of like, that vanilla flavor of AI posts.
So to the point, I actually love vanilla ice cream. It is my favorite.
I know. It's one of my faves. Yeah.
But not in writing. Anyway, carry on.
Okay. So I have a friend of mine. She's in the recruitment industry. And she discovered like years ago, ChatGPT, like we all did. And she was using it for LinkedIn to promote job postings, right? Like all these open roles. And she was super excited. And she's like, oh my God, this is a game changer. I love it. I love it. I go, great. I go, my advice to her was use it. Absolutely. Because she would take a job posting and ask it, can you create a LinkedIn post for this so I can promote it? She loved it. However, my advice to her was just read it. Read it before you post it.
Yeah.
And make sure, does it sound like it comes from the company? Is this something that sounds like you? Would you be proud to post? Is the description accurate to the job posting? Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what was interesting is she started using it and probably, like probably got eyeballs on it and whatever. But what she also noticed was that other recruiters or people in her industry were, their posts started to look like hers. And how did
Right.
she know? Because they had the same happy, positive corporate tone. They had those emojis that used bullets,
Emojis.
those emojis, so
Yeah.
many exclamation marks. And
Yeah.
so she started to go, well, everyone's post is starting to look like this
Yeah.
from recruiters. So again, if you're a recruiter, great, use it. Absolutely, because you got to promote those open roles and hard to fill roles for sure. But make sure that, does it come from you? Does it sound like you? Is there ways to make it not so generic and vanilla? Because guess what? Everyone's using it. So how do you stand out? Your
Well,
voice, like you're going to help
and
stand out.
that brings to mind, now I am not a marketer. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a marketer. But the word that came to me as you were talking about that was differentiation.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to hear about all the time. I used to work very closely with the marketing department. And it was all about differentiating, your product, your service, your brand from everything else that's out there. You need to be unique because guess what? Hopefully you are unique and not like every other offering out there in the market. And that's just so interesting because this idea that that using these chatbots kind of democratizes everything and makes it
Totally.
all too much the same. And I have certainly seen, emojis galore. I have actually been surprised when I'll see friends who, not in a business context, but for other things, like this one friend who, has a band and they do a lot of stuff. And when they're promoting their stuff, like it's all that. At first I was like, wow, people in the band actually can write, not bad. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm seeing the emojis. I'm seeing the exclamation points. And then in one post they did, it said, I'm sorry, I'm not able to make this link to that. And I'm like, okay, dude, you got to read it and then you got to edit it. Because to differentiate yourself is, in some ways, it's actually a little bit harder, I think, with when you've got the benefit of these chatbots, which are pretty good, but it makes it harder to differentiate yourself because you really need to, as you said, you really need to know your audience. You need to know your audience and what do they need to see and hear and read and feel. And you're not going to get that if you're using the same kind of language that everybody else is using in their organizations because nobody is writing. They are just using AI to get over the writing hump.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I mean, you and I always talk about sort of those three elements, right? That you need to know before you even put, hands on keys or pen to paper or whatever that is, right? We talk about, knowing your objective. Like when you're writing something, especially if it's important, like an important email where you might be asking for something, a presentation or proposal where you're, again, asking or something or you're asking someone to take action or make a decision. You know what your objective is. Does AI know it? Maybe. Maybe if you express it, if you have a good prompt, but you have to still know what that is.
Yeah.
You also have to know who your audience is, right? Are you asking the CEO? Are you asking their reports? Are you asking someone peer? Like you need to know like who are they? What kind of information, and then leading into what kind of context, information, and delivery. Those are the three magic questions we always ask, right? What do they need? You don't know. Like, do they love a lot of detail? Maybe they don't. Maybe there's other stuff going on that you have to consider that's going on for them. You can't. No chatbot or AI is going to know all those things again, unless you do it. But that's the key. You have to provide that information or those nuances, and make, again, going back to the topic of choices. You have to decide, like, okay, well, you can use AI to generate maybe a first draft of a great presentation based on your topic. But you still have to decide, okay, well, how does this information flow for my audience? Does it meet the objective? Does this sound like me? Does it even sound like me?
Yeah, you need to know the answers to those questions. You can't rely on an AI chatbot to just automatically know that stuff. as you were talking, I was imagining what that would look like. So you and I we're internal communicators, we're working in a company. We've known them a long time. So we know the brand, we know the values, we know who the senior leaders are, we know what the communication environment is like. We know what challenges are out there for our people at that time. We know what opportunities are there because we know that stuff because we work in that space. So if I was to give a prompt, write a communication plan about rolling out a new benefits program, it would spit something out, and probably the bones of it would be fine. It would have all the right section areas. But for it to become a meaningful communication plan, I'd have to upload all that stuff. I'd have to tell it, what is our brand? What is our values? What is our history? What have we done in the past? And how successful or unsuccessful has that been? So basically, it's downloading all the stuff I would have in my head onto this chatbot so it could spit out a communication plan that would be meaningful. But that requires me to give it all that information because it doesn't automatically know. I have a question for you. Hey, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, and maybe someone out there listening does. But if I work with, Tracy's chatbot over and over again, and I've fed all that stuff into that system, will it then be able to draw on it every time, or would I have to upload it every time?
I think it would draw it. I think it's learning, right?
That's right. So it would learn through its interaction with me because it's my personal account.
Yeah. Possibly.
Because that would be interesting. I wonder how that would go. Especially like big changes, right? One of the things around big changes, as you know, is historical context. Matters a lot if an organization's going through change. Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? So you can't just make a change communication plan and ignore history.
Well, and the thing is with that, I think especially for those of us in internal comms or have worked in internal comms, a lot of that information is confidential, right? It's proprietary information. So you shouldn't be uploading proprietary confidential information into a chat box, because guess what? It's going to learn from that and maybe apply it to something else. So I think that's something that's and I think a lot of companies are if you don't have rules around that, I'm sure there are, because but that's usually one of the top guidelines is like, you can use AI, absolutely, because this is the world,
right?
But you can't be uploading confidential information in there. So
there you go. That kind of answers. That brings us back.
So you got to bring you got
to bring yourself to whatever you're asking it to do, because without you and your brain, your critical thinking, your knowledge, you won't get something back that is going to be meaningful. Or going back to what you said, Faye, if I'm not clear on my audience, if I know my objective, but I'm not clear on my audience and I'm not clear on what they need in terms of information, context, and delivery, no chatbot's going to help me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like to wrap up, like the crux of, I guess, the heart of what we're talking about is that AI is great for starting things, but you got to finish them, right? It doesn't replace your judgment, intuition, and the things that as a communicator.
There'll be more on AI as we learn more. We'll talk
as we learn more, right? And we're not experts. We're not claiming to be experts at all. I mean, we're just like navigating this, such an interesting landscape.
But I guess if I was to leave one last thing for people to think about with respect to using AI, if you want to be differentiated, then you can't just rely on AI to do all your writing for you, because you will sound like everybody and everything else.
Okay. Yeah. All up here, guys. Anyway, and with that, I'm Faye.
And I'm Tracy. Join us next time on More Better with Tracy and Faye.